morning, friends, and welcome to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making a KFC famous bowl, which if you haven't tried, it's mashed potatoes and gravy with some corn and grated cheese on top, and then chicken nuggets, which I think are like made from chicken tenders. And it's really good. I think it just might be a little bit better homemade, but we'll find out. Today it's already 9 a.m., so I'm just going to do as much prep work as I can. What we want to get started is if we want a real southern meal, I think that we need some sweet tea, and I think we need some dessert. But we'll see if I actually do a dessert. I'm thinking about a blueberry pie, but I've made pies probably like 5 times in my life. So sweet tea, let's get started with that. I'm just gonna make some concentrated black tea in here. So we're gonna do plenty of tea leaves and however much water that is. And we'll just spread it out and make half a gallon of sweet tea later when it's cooled off. So I had to try the sweet tea, of course, to get me through the morning. And used my new special fussy cups that have special little ice cubes. Well, I'm like addicted to iced coffee from the coffee stand, and I know I can make it at home, but I don't want to sometimes. I think it's because when it's in the clear cup, you can see it. That was my theory. So I wanted to get like a clear cup with a straw. So I'm starting on biscuits. I learned that if you make them early and just put them in the fridge, and then when you cook them, you just sort of zap them at 450 for like 20 minutes, 18. They turn out really nicely if they're pre-chilled. So it's like you can make them as early as you want and cook them cold, and they just have a good texture and they feel soft. One of those pastry cutters is something I don't have in my kitchen, but I've survived without it so far. I just cut it with a knife and then pinch the butter in with my fingers. Also, the recipe for the biscuits, it's Biscuit Supreme from the Better Homes and Gardens cookbook. So you could probably find it online. But it asks for baking powder, and I don't use that because I don't know, I think there's aluminum. I don't know everything. Maybe they don't always have aluminum in it. But a great substitute is baking soda. You just use however much baking powder you're supposed to add. You do 2/3 of something acidic and 1/3 of baking soda. So I added, instead of 4 teaspoons of baking powder, I did about 2 rounded teaspoons of vinegar, which I added to the milk, and then a rounded teaspoon of baking soda to the powder, to the flour. And that's been working fine. So I'm just going to pop those in the fridge. Also, I don't have a pastry brush, and it's like you can just dab milk on with your fingers. Maybe I'll get one. I decluttered it. Maybe I'll get one day. So, yeah, last video I had some interesting oyster sauce that my dad gave me, and this one I have some pie filling also from my parents, and I thought might as well just use it. I'm going back to Better Homes and Gardens for the pie crust, and the recipe is very similar to the biscuits. It just uses more butter, and I'm just pinching that in again. Again, if you're really good at making pie crusts, maybe this part will be a little bit cringeworthy, but sometimes if you're overwhelmed and something seems scary, like pie, it's better just to do it and just do a bad job. And it still tasted really good. So sometimes I tell myself just do a bad job and yeah, just throw that crust on top and it's really lumpy and fat and all that. I'm kind of proud of having three knives in my kitchen besides steak knives. And that big chef knife works just fine for almost everything, even cutting your pie crust. So I'm cooking this dinner for me, my husband, and my two kids who are about 1.5 and 2.5. And this might seem like a lot of potatoes, but I love having leftovers. Lately, I've started just having leftovers for lunch every day. I don't even always reheat it, and it's like almost every day. And that really makes things easy. So I try to make some toddler friendly thing at dinner, plenty of it, and they love mashed potatoes. We had the leftovers from this meal for a couple days because I made like chicken wraps and everything. Okay, so here's where I looked up a KFC recipe. It was called Easy Homemade KFC. And I think it asks for buttermilk. That's why I added some vinegar to the milk. And this recipe notes that KFC doesn't actually marinate their meat forever. They just sort of dip it in the liquid and then in the flour mixture. And but they do say it's better if you do it for 30 minutes or a whole day. I think if you just make it before you make your flour mixture, it will marinate for at least 10 or 20 minutes while you're just looking for all your spices. I did not grow up going to KFC, but my husband likes it. His family is gone, and they're from Kentucky, and they don't go all the time. But basically, they introduced me to KFC, and then we were watching a series of like how things are made, and I was fascinated to watch a whole like how KFC fried chicken is made, and maybe everyone knows this, but apparently they have this secret spice mix that uses 11 spices, and it was secret for a long, long, long time. And then someone leaked it, and now you can look it up online. And there are a lot of spices. I was like impressed. For breading a whole chicken that's cut into chunks, you need like 2 cups of flour, and it asked for, I think it was 2/3 cups of paprika. That was the biggest spice. And there was a lot of white pepper. And I was surprised to see there was also ginger and mustard powder. I'm cutting that recipe in half. So I'm going to link the recipe I used in my description, and then I'm just cutting the breading in half because I'm not breading a whole chicken. I'm just doing like 2 packs of chicken tenders. So there's salt, pepper, and paprika. I think basil and oregano and thyme. The mustard and ginger, as I mentioned, garlic powder, and that's mustard. That's from my dad. It actually asks for celery salt, which I don't have. So I don't know what that would do. Um, there's plenty of garlic. I don't think there's onion powder in the recipe. But in my half recipe, I ended up doing 3 teaspoons of white pepper. And it did feel kind of peppery, but not like spicy. Spicy. There it all is. That was really fun, just mixing it all. And one benefit of homemade is that you can choose your oils. So I like to do coconut oil. I don't taste it. I think it's just a healthier thing than the you know, vegetable, quote, vegetable oils. So this is the first batch. I did try to use the thermometer on the first batch, and if you're using a thermometer, you want your chicken at 165. But I think that batch got burned on the other side. Like not burn, but I don't know. I kind of just stopped testing the temperature and just started looking at it. Just don't cook it too fast or too high. Give it time to cook. And that way the inside meat will be cooked before the crust gets too dark. So my recipe said you don't need to double dredge it, but I did for a couple batches. I was like, why not try it just to make a really nice thick coating? So I think it works either way. Not, no, there wasn't a huge difference between if you double dip everything or not. It's just kind of messy. I think at the end it is just easier to just put everything in the bowl and just mix it instead of like, you know, trying to perfectly coat an individual piece and then also to push hard on the chicken so that it soaks up a lot of flour. And I am realizing how unsanitary that is now to use the raw meat tongs. But we are all alive and well today, thankfully. So in the pot behind is my mashed potatoes waiting to boil. In the oven, I have the biscuits cooking, or at least the oven's heating up. And if I was really on top of things, I would have made a coleslaw in the morning, but yeah, it's not really heavy on vegetables tonight. In my huge pot to the left, I have a whole chicken simmering because I wanted to make some bone broth for the gravy. And then the next day, I just made some stuff with the chicken, some enchiladas, and kept the rest of the bone broth. So I'm testing out batch number one, and it was definitely cooked on the inside, and it was definitely yummy. But I think I decided to cook it a little bit less because I wanted the meat to be a tiny bit softer. It'll be soft. I mean, they're chicken tenders, especially the longer you marinate it. I do recommend some type of screen. And I was try doing a lid once, which maybe everyone knows not to do because then all the moisture collects and the water drips down and splashes everywhere. So the screen is nice. It'll keep you from getting like little oil splatters on your arms when you're flipping stuff if things are really hot. And there I'm just adding some flour to butter to cook that and try to make a gravy. Um, I added 4 cups of broth without much flour and butter, so the gravy was pretty liquidy. Probably 2 cups of bone broth would have been sufficient, or meat stock, really. And to the potatoes, I'm just adding salt, pepper, butter, and milk. And then you can just forget about those for a while. There's my wonderful ladle. I really want a nice big stainless steel ladle. But I've been using my one measuring cup for a few years and it works really well. I don't know why stainless steel everything is so expensive, but a ladle that holds about a cup that's stainless steel sometimes is like $30. So, yeah, one day. Unless you all know of something that's decent and cheaper. I'm adding salt, pepper, and rosemary for my flavor, and then a tiny bit of turmeric just to give it a little bit of yellow. It's okay to cheat, right, with your colors. Here I'm, again, I'm not familiar with pie, but I think I had to consult this to cook the pie. It was about half an hour um, without, no, half hour covered and another half hour uncovered at a certain temperature, which I forgot. And those turned out really nice and puffy. That's what I managed to do decoratively. But again, when you're making a whole dinner, it's like you don't care about looks. It's just like finish today, please. So I'm like, that's just gonna cook in the oven while I'm finishing dinner and while we're eating dinner. And um wasn't, that can just come out later after dinner. So the KFC famous bowls, like I said, have corn. But when I bought this from the restaurant, um, my toddlers loved it completely, but the corn just didn't go over well. So I'm cooking it tonight, but they're not getting any. If you buy a chicken tender box, a box with 5 chicken tenders from KFC and 2 sides and a biscuit, it costs about $16 with a drink. And tonight I probably paid about $16 for the 2 packs of chicken tenders, so I think we got a good deal in a way. Potatoes are, practically nothing, and canned corn, same. And my kids seem to love it just as much as the restaurant version, but no problems later the next day. So that was great. But I still love the KFC fake mashed potato, like the powder. Like Like, it comes from a box and the gravy comes from probably some powder. I still love it. I would still eat it again. It's just like, might as well make a real version too. And there's my famous bowl and a plate for my husband. And my toddler's been like chomping at the bits for dinner because it did take a little while. And look at the leftovers we got. I ended up making some chicken wraps and also later a soup with the leftover mashed potatoes and gravy mixed together and then like biscuits crumbled into it for lunch that with my kids. That was good. Did not come without the cost of dishes. And there's our blueberry pie. Still bubbling. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope if that looks good, you don't feel scared to try it yourself because everything was really pretty easy. Just one step at a time, and there it is. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.